Welcome to another episode of Shooting the Shit with literary agents Carly Waters and CeCe Lyra, where we dissect publishing gossip, discuss book industry trends, and the overall state of the book business. If you've ever wanted to grab a coffee with two literary agents, grab your mug and pull up a chair. Hi, everybody. Last week was live from LA. This week is live from Hawaii. As you can see, that CeCe is in full Hawaii mode, and I am in full sweater mode because there's actually a ton of snow out here right now. And I have lots of updates still. I talked to you guys last week when I was halfway through my meetings, so we still have like more LA to cover, and obviously all of CeCe's travel. So CeCe, you got out of the snow and you made it to Hawaii. Tell us how it went.
I did. I escaped the snow. It's beautiful here. I'm in Kauai. It is gorgeous, and I'm really happy to be chatting with you. And I totally thought it was Tuesday, but it's not. It's Wednesday. We record on Wednesday. But that's how island time I am. I'm like, it's Tuesday. And Carly was texting me like, I think we have to record. And I'm like, Carly doesn't know what day of the week it is. Carly knew. I didn't know.
You know what? We got to keep a tight schedule here on the East Coast, island time, whatever. But yeah, so we have some fun things to chat about. You know, CeCe and I love to recount you with our travel stories. I will tell you guys about my travel story coming back from LA because I booked myself a seat where I wanted to recline. I obviously wanted to sleep. I was taking a red eye home on Friday night. I got out easily, like through LAX, because I know there's a bunch of government shutdowns and all of that stuff, but I got out easily. And then I'm in my seat. I'm like hitting the recline button, ready to sleep through my red eye flight. Here I am trying to maximize all of my working hours and all my mom hours. And I'm like, I'm going to take the red eye home on Friday night so I can, be in work mode, sleep, and then be in mom mode. Anyway, my seat didn't recline. The lovely, flight attendants, they were trying to help as best they could. They got out the manual to try and figure out if they could manually recline my seat, and there was nowhere else to be on the plane. So I was just up sitting. Anyway, but I read Broken Country, which I hadn't read yet. It was my book club's choice. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to be up all night, I'm going to be up all night, whatever, I'll lean into it. So I read Broken Country. It was so good.
It's
great.
amazing.
I'm having my eyes, crying on the plane. Good thing everybody else was sleeping because I was crying. And that is how I got home from LA. CeCe, do you have any travel stories to regale us with, or it was smooth for you?
Well, my luggage got lost. Also, okay, so I brought 2 suitcases plus my carry-on because I'm not a minimalist. And one of my suitcases, so I got a connecting flight in Denver. So then I did Denver, Kauai, right? And one of my suitcases made it and the other one went to LA. And I don't understand how that's possible because both of them not making it makes sense and one of them making it doesn't. But I got it back. It was fine. It wasn't a big deal. It was a suitcase that had most of my shoes and my makeup remover, but I made do because I am an adaptable person. I feel like this is such first world problems. Wait, but I want to know, were you happy? No spoilers. Were you happy with who she ended up in Broken Country? There's a love triangle for you guys who haven't read it. We're not going to say who it was because no spoilers. Yeah. But were you happy? Because I loved that book. It was so good.
It was fantastic. I mean, yeah, 10 out of 10, no notes. Oh, that's a hard one to answer. What it reminded me of was Atonement. I think that's his best cultural calm. Atonement, the McEwan novel. Yeah, there's just something so longing and timeless and sweeping about it. It was so good. So was I happy? I don't know. I think it was the most realistic ending. I don't know if I was happy with the ending. I think it was the most realistic ending. Maybe I'll say that.
Interesting. I liked him better.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I don't like the excuse the other one had,
yeah.
I don't like that. Communicate. It's on you to communicate.
Yeah.
It's not that I hated him, but I was like, please be with this other guy. I don't like that man's excuse. And he felt like a mama's boy. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I just didn't like that.
Well, you guys let us know if you're watching on YouTube. You can obviously put it in the comments. Did you agree with the ending of Broken Country? We would love to hear. There's a couple things I wanted to chat about today. Well, one big one, and then we have some DMs, and obviously there's so many great Substacks. We always got to cover some Substacks. So one thing I thought we could get into today, and I will obviously talk super vaguely about this, but it happens over the years. Today is actually my official 15-year agenting anniversary at PS Literary. So that is a milestone for me today. So over 15 years, this is an interesting thing that happens when a client gets an offer but turns down the publishing offer. I'm talking about the publishing offer at this point because it is something that is a really hard decision for an author to make. Often this is, sometimes it's in an auction where, there's multiple offers and you can't take every offer that the author is given. And so you have to make some decisions. But there's also when you are in a kind of publishing contract and there's an option clause and you have to show the material to the publisher, and then they get the first right of refusal. Sometimes the client turns down that offer. So there's a lot of factors that go into this, and there's a lot of kind of, I don't know, complicating things in terms of what the client wants, what their goals are. But I think it's also interesting from an agent's perspective to kind of talk about how you counsel somebody through that process, because we don't have crystal balls. We can't say, if we turn down this offer, then we can definitely get you another one. But there's a lot that has to kind of go into, just that relationship with your client about saying, what is it that you actually want from this? And if the publisher that you're with right now kind of isn't maybe delivering on some things that you're looking for, or the editor relationship has changed, what also happens a lot is that we sell a book to a certain editor. That editor leaves, they go on to a different job, and then you get another editor in-house, and maybe that relationship with that editor isn't as strong. And then by the time the book comes out and the option comes out, that client is ready to move on. So, it comes down to a lot of things. It's that career vision. A book can also be doing really well with a publisher, and so the publisher is willing to kind of continue on with them. But you also don't know the true market value for that title, right? Because when we go out wide with a project, you essentially get the market value, meaning you might get one offer, you might get more than one offer, and you're able to kind of leverage all of this and put this together to figure out what is the true market value of a book. As you know, a manuscript on a computer, when it's just being typed, the market value is $0 because it's not in the marketplace. But then when something becomes a product into the marketplace, it's assigned, essentially a dollar value. And so when we are working with options, an option first right of refusal, it's interesting to figure out how the publisher views that as what is the fair market value for a project versus if it was on the open market. And so anyway, that's my little rant about that. But CeCe, do you have any thoughts about how you advise clients when you get to this stage?
Yeah, I think that we, like you said, there are many situations where that might happen, and it makes sense, I think, to focus on the one where there's no other offer on the table, whether that's an option situation or just regular going out with the project situation. Because when there's another offer and you're just turning one down for another, then it's just a totally different psychological path to navigate. I think that it's definitely tricky, but I think that if an author is even considering turning something down, that says so much. Getting an offer in publishing is amazing. It's a great feeling for every author out there. It doesn't get old for anyone, not even agents. And when an author doesn't have anything else, right, and is still thinking, should I take this? That question alone says so much. And I think we need to listen to that question. What are the reasons? And it all comes down to, what are your expectations? What are your goals? Sometimes expectations are not realistic. They might have value, and they might be something that's important to the author, but they're not realistic. I don't know. I want an offer that's 7 figures, not 6. It might not be realistic, or it might be, depending on the project. Or I want an offer that's going to come with $1 assigned to my marketing budget. That is very, very, very rare, almost unheard of. And so it depends on what the person is going to say, what the author is saying. But I think that every case is so unique. That's the thing about our jobs, right? Every case is so unique. I had a client once tell me, because I was advising her, and she was like, okay, I'm oscillating between fortune favors the bold. Let's turn it down. Let's go out with this. Let's see who else is out there. And between don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Now, I feel very strongly that the don't look a gift horse in the mouth is a terrible way to look at an offer. An offer is not a gift. It's not charity. It's not a favor. Yes, publishing is competitive, but you have to value yourself, and it can't come from a place of fear. That's something I feel very, very, very strongly about. That being said, I understand people who are fearful of turning down an offer and not being able to find a better one out there. And it really does come down to what's your appetite for risk? My appetite for risk is very high. I am never pressuring my clients or trying to nudge them into accepting something, because I'm I will turn down anything as long as my client is happy with it. It doesn't bother me at all. I have nerves of steel when it comes to this one specific thing. Again, I gambled big when I became an agent. I turned down a very lucrative career to do this. And I just don't see why leading from a place of fear would make sense. But it's important for the client to know that there are no guarantees. And clients always ask, so how much do you think we can get for this in the open market? And I'm like, honey, I will tell you that I'm confident about this, or else we wouldn't be having this conversation. But we don't know. We don't know. It's what you said. The value gets assigned when the offers come in.
Yeah. And one thing I'm thinking about, a more recent example where we kind of know what we're kind of walking into in terms of expecting an offer on an option. And I really tried to make, so many conversations really clear before we get the offer. Because a lot of times clients think, oh, I'll see when I get the offer and then I'll make the decision. And that's fine too. There's no right or wrong way to make a decision. And oftentimes it's best to be really strong in your conviction before the offer comes in, whether it's like journaling or making notes, just writing to yourself about why you are in the headspace that you are in now, because it's totally different tune sometimes when that offer comes in. And then offers can be negotiated and all these other things, but there's a reason why you were starting to ask those questions, like CeCe said. So being strong in your conviction before the offer comes in is usually the best way to kind of get yourself in the right headspace for what's to come.
I think, again, bringing it back to the stock market, when I'm buying stock, I always have I have a spreadsheet where I write down, if the stock reaches this amount, I will sell. And that way, when I'm in the heat of the moment, I don't have to make that decision because I already made it, before, when my mind was clear and level-headed. So that helps. And it's not the same thing because it's an objective number with the stock market, and with offers, it seldom is. But I think that's a really good point that you're making. And I think it helps to point to that, to go, hey, I know it's a heated moment now, but remember when we weren't in a heated moment? Remember what you said? Let's come back to that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, that's the most vague way we can possibly talk about that topic. So thanks for indulging this conversation, everybody. Okay, so somebody had a question that was kind of a follow-up to my LA travels, and they said they were talking about TV film. I thought this was an interesting question just because it talks a little bit kind of relationally about how things work. And they said, as an author, is it okay to reach out to producers on your own if you have a pitch deck and a pitch, or should you only allow your agent to do so? What if your agent's agency doesn't have a TV film option department or a strong track record of optioning books for TV film? I've taken screenwriting classes, written scripts, and worked as a PA on film sets, so I have a basic understanding of what pitching for TV film demands, but I'm simply not sure what the etiquette is when a book is involved. Of course, I prefer to have someone more experienced doing so, but I worry my agency wouldn't be a strong champion in this regard. If my book, now on sub, gets purchased, I'd love your insight. So number one, while I was checking out this question, I was like, it's hard to tell if this person has an agent and they're not sure about that agent's competency, or it sounds like their book is
That's
on
how I
sub.
read it. I read it that it's on sub. Yeah, agented sub. That's how I read it. But you're right, it's not clear.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go with that theory. Let's go. We need one or the other. So let's go with they're not sure about that agency's track record in that space. Number one, you need to go to your representation agreement, because it is very clear about sub rights in terms of what to do about sub rights. So it generally, every sub right involved with that book is part of the IP of that book, and therefore should flow through the agency. So this requires a lot of communication with your primary agent, your literary agent, about who is doing what. And so if there is the case where you have really strong contacts, it could be that once you have a conversation with your agent, they say, yes, it is okay to do that, but you can't do this without talking to your agent. And it sounds like you might just, again, not be confident that they're able to do it. So there just has to be some really frank conversations about what would your sub list to co-agents look like? And just really just try to suss it out, and not in an accusatory way, but in a way of is it okay? Do I have your written formal permission that I'm able to do these things? No matter what, the commission and the money would still have to kind of flow through your primary literary agent, because that's kind of the flow of things. Again, all legalese aside, is this the right thing to do? One of the reasons that all of these things are in place for the way that they are is that it best serves you, the author. And so again, once your book has been sold to a publisher, then there'll be this deal announcement and all this buzz. And that's something that, again, your agent can build on, and co-agents can build on, to kind of sell this for other potential sub-rights. So I would just make sure you're not circumventing them without carefully reading your contract and speaking to them about what your goals are, and again, how you can kind of assist in these goals, and just making sure it's all really clear and all of the legalese part of things. CeCe, did you have any extra thoughts there?
Yeah, and I think you have to be careful to not shoot yourself on the foot, because So much of success with film TV adaptations is controlling the narrative and reaching out to the right people in the right moment in the right way. And of course, if you have these great contacts and you know the right people the right way, the right moment, it could work out really well. But you might have great contacts and not know that second part. And so you might end up mentioning information that is too premature, or in a way that's not framed intelligently. There's just so many factors to consider. I think that having that really frank conversation, and I wouldn't be worried about offending your agent. I just wouldn't. Like, obviously you'll be polite about it, but it's fair for you to say, hey, I'm worried because I have these goals, XYZ, and I have these contacts, and I'd like to like be really smart about this and honor our partnership. So yeah, like I get that some people would be uncomfortable to have that talk, but best to have it and not feel frustrated later, I think.
Yeah. And the other thing is, and again, not to downplay any of your contacts because you could have incredible contacts, but there's a lot of like independent producers out there who are looking for shopping agreements at a zero fee rate. And so you don't just want to like get yourself into a shopping agreement or a low fee option just for the sake of saying my book's been optioned, right? Because then it takes it on off the
Mm-hmm.
table for years to come. So like CeCe said, controlling that narrative, doing it in partnership with people who, just have your best interests at heart and really want to do right by your book is super important. So good luck to your book on sub. Hoping all the best for you. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We had another question come in that I thought was kind of interesting. There's just so much that we could, get into on various different conversations about AI. But this person had said, you clearly have opinions on the current AI mess. And I'm wondering, have agents noticed an influx of queries clearly or maybe not so clearly written by ChatGPT or other AI chatbots? And as a corollary, if it's not too bold, if AI gets better, quote unquote better, over the next years, would you and CeCe ever consider feeding a client's novel into an AI program with a prompt to write an effective pitch letter aimed at XYZ editor? So curious, and I bet many other listeners would be too. I love this because I think you're asking the question that tons of people want to ask. And yeah, I mean, it's so complicated, but right now, yeah, it's garbage. So, this is a hypothetical, but CeCe, what is your hypothetical answer to this question?
No, my hypothetical answer is no, I would not consider. And it's obviously possible, because this is possible for every single answer I will ever give, that I'll change my mind down the road because I'll have new information and new perspective. But I am also someone who knows myself fairly well. I just can't imagine doing that. I don't like outsourcing my brain. I feel very strongly that I don't want a
No.
machine thinking for me. I want machines to do grunt work for me. Like I love technology. I use technology every day. Thanks to technology, we have this podcast. I'm currently in Hawaii, doing this podcast. But I do not like that. I don't want a machine writing a pitch for me. I just don't want that. It won't do a good job like I will. It won't feel the book like I will feel. I just don't believe it. Maybe I'm being naive. Maybe I'm being dumb. It's possible, but I don't think I am. I do not like outsourcing my brain. I feel very strongly that my critical thinking is one of my greatest assets, and my way of looking at things with my unique perspective sets me apart as an agent, and I don't trust machines to do that for me. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to frame this in a slightly different way, which is like we're essentially saying, could this AI program be an assistant? And I have an assistant. And there are tons of things that I don't outsource to my assistant. I don't have my assistant write my pitch letters. I don't have them, put all this together to write pitches for me because I am the one that knows how to pitch something, how to frame something. What is it that attracted me to this project in the first place? And what are those like pieces that I think are saleable and culturally relevant?
Yes.
You also, like, once you get removed culturally and connectively to the connective tissue of what you're working on, like, what is the fucking point? Like, the whole point of us doing these jobs is that we care so deeply about these materials. We want to see them make their way into the world. And if I was to like not have that connective tissue with the work that I was working on, like that's the point where like I have to retire, because that is just not the way that agents should be doing their jobs. That's not why we got into this job in the first place. Like, what is this going to solve? This is going to make it so I can pitch more books in a year. Like, my goal isn't to pitch more books in a year. My goal is to properly and accurately pitch the books that I do work on now.
Yeah.
The best books to the best ability. So I think you have to think about like, yeah, is this how do we frame this usage? What does better mean? And what is the desired outcome? Because to me, the desired outcome isn't to become more removed from the work that is my joy. That's just not what the point is.
I agree. I fully agree.
Yeah.
That's a really good point about the joy.
Yeah, this is why we do this job. Okay, so we have time for one Substack. We have another one too, but we'll save that for next week. We have one Substack that we want to chat about with you guys. So it comes from maybe I overshared.substack.com, and it is titled Why Authors Should Care About HarperCollins's quote bad quarter unquote, written by Alex. Subhead: What HarperCollins's rough quarter reveals about the fragile ecosystem every author depends on. And so, the header explains, News Corp had some reportings that weren't overly ideal. CeCe, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, I want to say, like, I know Alex really well. I want to disclose that. Alex is a publisher at Rising Action. She's great. I've been to conferences with Alex. I think that's important context because, she's talking about a really big publisher and she runs a small publishing house. And so that perspective is informing her thoughts, not in a bad way, just the opposite. But I think it's important context. I want to add that. Yeah, I really enjoyed the way she wrote. She writes really well. And I just really enjoyed the way she framed how this giant machine that is a big five publisher, this is specific to HarperCollins, but honestly, it applies to so many publishers. Decisions and factors that are going in there could affect the little guy, meaning the author. I wasn't surprised by anything. I do think that so much of publishing is figuring out what you can and you can't control. And the things that we can't control, that list becomes larger and larger and just longer and longer. And it's a challenge. It's for sure a challenge.
Yeah, one of the things that stood out to me was audiobooks sales fell off 11% and ebooks 9%. And generally overall, the assumption is people are just reading less coming out of the kind of COVID years. People are just finding other things to do, which is, it's our job to be publishing books that can stand up against all of the other forms of entertainment. You guys have heard me rant so many times about how our biggest competitor is Netflix and our phones and all of these other things in the attention economy that are trying to take our time and attention. I have heard two kind of marketing experts recently talk about how they think 2026 is going to be the year we go analog, which is great for the book business because we want everybody to go analog. There's so many young people that are just like hating being attached to their phones. They're growing up with parents who have phone addictions. And so Social Currency, I forget the name of the creator, but her account is Social Currency, and she has, Sammy Cohen is her name. Social Currency. She has great social media, a great newsletter, and Gary Vee, who's a marketing expert that most of you probably know, both of them have cited analog as the main trend for 2026, and they have nothing to do with book publishing. So, they're very much in the kind of the digital world. So I think this is all very good news. So I'm really hoping that, again, with so many people deciding that they want to be able to kind of, be in their hobbies, work on things that they can touch and feel, that are tangible, that they can own, unlike our digital content, that we're going to see a huge improvement in these numbers. So I'm actually really hopeful that this, that we're going to see an uptick in this. So while obviously a publisher's quarter being so down is obviously a negative thing, I'm really hoping that this move to analog, as a trend, at least, we'll see if it lasts, will prove to be fruitful next year.
I love your optimism. Where would we be without Carly's optimism? We need this in the world. Thank you for the optimism. Yes. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I usually every year I do a trend analysis where I talk about what I think are going to be the hottest predictions for the following year. I haven't written my predictions yet. Previous years I've done Instagram Lives, I've done carousels, I've done Zoom. So I'm figuring out what format I want to do this year, but I will be working on my 2026 publishing predictions. So keep an eye out on my socials for how I'm going to launch that. So yes, always full of optimism, realism, but optimism. Definitely important to me. All right. Well, CeCe, have a great rest of your time in Hawaii. We will catch you next week. I think you'll still be in Hawaii when we're recording next week.
I will. Yes. And I will not get the day wrong this time, I think.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
CeCe Lira is a literary agent at Wendy Sherman Associates. If you'd like to query CeCe, please refer to the submission guidelines at www.wsherman.com. Carly Waters is a literary agent at PS Literary Agency, but her work on this podcast is not affiliated with the agency, and the views expressed by Carly on this podcast are solely that of her as a podcast co host and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, policies, or position of PS Literary Agency.